Happy 2020 from First Bite and SpeechTherapyPD.com. We wanted to announce that to kick off 2020 for the first time ever, we will be issuing out, and wait for it, drumroll, dun 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 dun, an all-new Podcore subscription. For $79 a month, you get over 175 hours of ASHA continuing education with 19 new episodes a month. That's fantastic. Well, they want to make sure that you also know we have a brand new coupon code. So the coupon code is F as in first, B as in bite, followed by the number 20, FB20. And that brand new coupon code will give you $20 off the Podcore subscription. So you get 175 hours of continuing ed plus an average of 19 new hours a month, all for $59 a year. And we cover everything from early intervention to schools to adults to ethics. So be sure to type in F as in first, B as in bite, and then the number's 20. Enjoy your coupon, or as my kinfolk say, enjoy that coupon. Hi, folks, and welcome to First Bite, fed, fun, functional resources for the pediatric clinician. I am your host on this nerd venture, Michelle Dawson, MS, CCC, SLP, the All Things Peds SLP. I am a colleague in the trenches of home health early intervention, right there with you. I run my own private practice, Heartwood Speech Therapy, in Coletown, South Carolina, and guest lecture nationwide on best practices for early intervention for the medically fragile child. First Bite's mission is short and sweet, to bring light and hope to the world for the pediatric clinician, parent, or advocate. In this podcast, we cover everything from AAC to breastfeeding, best practice for running a private practice, and all the nitty-gritty details involving feeding and swallowing by interviewing the subject matter experts themselves. We bring the data to you. Every fourth episode, I am joined by the lovely Erin Forward, MSP, CF, SLP, a Yankee transplant who actually inspired this journey and who also walks the wild, woolly, and sometimes sticky walk of early intervention with us. Sit back, relax, and watch out for all the squirrels, and enjoy this geeky gig brought to you by SpeechTherapyPD.com. So today's topic falls in the fun and functional category because of the amazing speaker that we have lined up. It's the one and only Mr. Stephen Kneece, MA, CCC, SLP. Now, if that name sounds familiar, well, I'm kind of hoping that it should, because he is the voice behind our introduction songs every Tuesday night. Stephen is the one-man band, CEO, and founder of Speech and Language Songs, a YouTube channel with over 1,000+ followers where you can obtain custom-made songs as well as general songs that focus on core vocabulary, articulation and phonology, language, and even the ever so sought after in our field, literacy. And Stephen's a repeat guest, so be sure to check him out in episode number 58, Early Childhood and AAC with Speech and Language Songs. Also, I girl crush his wife because Allie is co-owner of The Alley, which is the most amazing tap room in Aiken, South Carolina. So shout out to your amazing wife because she's wonderful. They do yoga and yoga and stretch, yoga beer stretch, or something like that.
Yeah, bend and brew is what they call it.
That's a wonderful invention, by the way. Okay. All right. So focus. Today's focus takes a shift away from what we covered in our last episode. It was episode number 58, Early Childhood and AAC with Speech and Language Songs. But today's focus discusses the power of hierarchy in cues and the evidence behind the push-in model. So yay, this is all very critical to those of us in early intervention that have little ones that are transitioning into early childhood special education. So on that awkward note, Mr. Steven, take it away, friend.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me back on the podcast. So things are going pretty good on my end. Still working for Aiken County Public School District. So I do assistive technology and AAC kind of consult for a majority of the school, not majority, some of the schools. And then I have a person that I work with, another speech pathologist that I work with that does the other part of the schools in Aiken County. So everything's going good.
Nice. Okay, so and speech and language songs is just kind of taking off because every time I turn around, you're branching out into a new area. When you first started this, it was like primarily artic and phonology, and then you moved into core vocab, right?
Yeah, we're slowly trying to make some more stuff. So we started off with artic stuff and doing some core vocabulary, and we're just gonna continue that. So we come out with a new song every week, and we just started doing some literacy stuff as well. So we're doing phonics type songs right now. So there's so many. I have so many different ideas of songs to do. So it's just the matter of time to get all of them done. So I have plenty of material for the next couple years to come, at least, to create some new songs. But yeah, a main focus recently has been core vocabulary songs. We really based it off of the top 100, high frequency core words. That we are trying to target in a fun, engaging way, and to have the videos to be fun and engaging, and something that would be maybe part of a lesson. Like maybe you can front load and do the song at the beginning, maybe sandwich it, do it at the beginning, at the end. We do some push-in lessons where we kind of started off, and some of the kids really enjoy those, but we kind of try to hit a specific core vocabulary word for each song and really kind of focus on that.
Perfect. There's a zoo one that I've used.
Yeah. There's that was one of the first ones. So, we did like the zoo and the park and school. Yeah, that was like the first three. Yeah.
Yes, the zoo one works for me, and so
I'm glad you like that one.
Between you and a certain puzzle, I have one kid that's pretty happy come Thursday morning. So go team! Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to take a big jump and go into prompting hierarchy and why that's important for AAC. And I have to be honest, when we first discussed doing this, I feel like I may get like the groundwork and we're just starting to expose a tiny human to AAC, and then they go to the public schools and you guys do like all the work. So when you and I run across each other at like a conference, I feel like such a novice newbie. And that's why I'm always like, Steven, what are they talking about? Because like, I don't know grammar on an AAC device. I'm like, let's pick out the first 5 words. So, yeah.
And that's such a good place. Yeah. And that's a good place to be. I mean, so it's kind of tough. And that kind of brings me to something before I start talking about the prompting. It's just being an expert on all these different areas. Yes. It's so difficult to impossible to do. So luckily I'm just, focusing on assistive technology, AAC stuff in the school. So that's a very, very specific thing, so I get to get somewhat decent at one small, tiny area. And that seems like it takes a lot of work in and of itself. And which is cool because then I get to consult with a bunch of other cool SLPs and teachers, special ed teachers, self-contained teachers, general ed teachers, and share that information. But that's all I got. I'm just focusing on that area. So that makes it fun, but it's so impossible to know everything about all these different areas, which is crazy. But I guess that's a profession that we're in.
Yes, but I love that we have that. You and I are the bridge there, right?
Yeah.
So like this, most of the folks that are listening do the early childhood. So like we need to know what is it that would best help, like what can we do in the world of early intervention to help set the tiny human up for success when that critical 3 to 4 year old timeline rolls around and they go to the public schools, because I know a fair few of my little ones don't go to the schools right away when they're 3. They like choose to wait a year because, they're normally getting through like illnesses and cooties and like tiny human stuff. But that's why I'm excited. Okay. So prompting hierarchy.
Yeah,
When
I'll
I
get
think
back
of
on
this,
track. Sorry.
no. Like when I hear that, I'm like, okay, so do we start off with the object, a colorful photo of the object, the black and white photo of the object? Like, what is prompting hierarchy? Are we
Yeah,
going
yeah,
away
yeah.
from the pictures?
Yeah. No, yeah. So it's really like the level of cueing, the level of prompting that you're providing a client or a child. Knowing the correct level is super, super important. Like whatever that child needs, and of course, you're not going to be able to just tell somebody what it is. You have to really get to know the child and understand. And each child's going to be different, as with most things. So you have to find out. So too much of a certain prompt, you're over accommodating, and progress is going to stall because you're, giving them way too much prompting. It's like they don't need it, so they need to be able to have that space to grow. And then you have too little, frustration may set in, and you will not see any progress. So sometimes like the prompting doesn't appropriately match the child, and the team just thinks that, okay, AAC is just not the way to go, and nothing happens. And this also happens maybe if there's a choice of device or vocabulary set. There's just a poor fit for that. And what I'm talking about, let me kind of go back and talk about what prompting hierarchy is. Like what is a prompt hierarchy? There are really two that I look at a lot of times. So I'll talk about the first one, Kate Aaron. So she's kind of a big name in like AAC stuff. So she has one that she developed, I would imagine a few years back. So I've used that one for a while, and I'll just kind of take you through that to kind of lay some groundwork to understand what I'm kind of referring to when I say prompt hierarchy. So the first thing that she always wants to say is like, always use aided language stimulation. So regardless of what level of prompting that you're providing the client, you want to make sure that you're continuously modeling and giving that input into them. So partner augmented input, aided language support, all of that stuff. So that's going to be intensive, extensive across all environments. You're providing that input just as if you would be providing the verbal input. For a child that's going to be verbal. So you want to do
like,
this.
Okay.
Yeah. So like you are actually physically, it depends on what the situation is. You may be actually using the child's device to show them what you are telling them. So that's that
like,
aided
I
language.
want to eat. I want drink. No eat. No different.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
I'm touching their device in front of them.
Yeah, so it is basically what you are saying to that child, you are also providing with the device. So you're giving those prompts, those models for that. So that, and then really we're going to flip that and what they are going to say expressively, and then that's where the level of prompting changes. So when you're kind of receptively, you're giving them input, you still want to model for them. So let's kind of go through all of the different levels. And this is going to be start off with the least invasive and then go all the way to the most invasive or most restrictive. And this is Kate Aaron's. And I want to talk about two different ones because I think this one's a little more difficult for general ed teachers, parents, special ed teachers to understand. But if you're talking to other therapists and speech pathologists, this may be a good way of talking about it. But there's a secondary one that's a little more concise and easy to understand for somebody who is maybe a novice in this area. So I like to kind of reference both of those. So the first level is just creating engagement, creating motivation, create circumstances which are going to engage the child and make them want to communicate. So that's like the first level, and I'm sure there's some like an argument of, is that really a prompt, but so then it quickly moves on. So that's kind of the first level. You want to make sure you're doing something that is engaging and motivating for that child, and I know you have plenty of experience.
Yeah, like the thing they love the most, like if it's like jumping on a trampoline, right?
Yeah. Utilize that, leverage whatever their interest is. And I guess the tough part about that is because sometimes people are asked, okay, what is that? I don't know. It's going to be that individual child. I'll take a quick aside real quick and talk about, there's like an interest inventory if you want to get like really specific in, giving it to the parent. It's on AAC Language Lab, and I know there's a paywall on there, so I don't know if it's on the free side or the paid side. I can't remember, to be honest with
Okay,
you.
I'm glad that you explained that because I was like, "What's a paywall?"
Paywall, yeah. So,
Thank
sorry.
you.
So yeah,
I'm old, Stephen. I'm old. Make me cool, man. Help me.
yeah.
Oh, shnikes.
So if you go on AAC Language Lab and search it, you may not have access to it, and I'm sorry if you don't. But there's an interest inventory, but you really don't have to use that one. That was just an example that I can think of. And luckily, our school district does have a username and password for that, so we have access to it. But anyway, it has a bunch of different things for a parent to check off on, like is my kid interested in. But obviously, you don't need a checklist to figure that out. Maybe a conversation with the parents and just your exposure and trying a bunch of different things. You may be able to figure that out. But anyway, so that's super important. All right, so then the next level. And really, between each of these levels, what Miss Erin says is just to wait. You're going to add that pause, a little bit of wait time to see if you need to move up to another level of prompting. And that's kind of where you are going to find that sweet spot. You provide a prompt, give that wait time. Okay, that wasn't enough, so now I'm going to go to the next level, and you keep
Do you mean
repeating
like
that.
a latency period?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
give the prompt and then have a latency period, and
absolutely.
before you. Okay,
Yeah, wait,
that's
and this is
that.
really. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's where I struggle with. I'm impatient. Listen to me. I'm
Yeah.
interrupting you, asking the question, right? Because like I self-help skills. I need to learn patience. Patience is a virtue. I have heard that my entire life. But does she give a suggestion on what latency period we should use? Because I have to
Yeah.
literally count to 5 Mississippi.
Yeah, and again, everything's going to be individualized, so we have to find what is appropriate. But they say 10 to 15 seconds, which
Holy
I
cats! Are you
know
serious?
that's very long, and especially if you start counting that out, it is really, really long. And
That's worse than Blue's Clues, by the way. Just
right,
saying. That's like
that's way longer probably than
yes. Okay.
So that's what that, and I don't know if there is a specific, like, this is the exact amount of time that was found via this extensive research study, but in looking at all of the stuff on like Practical AAC and things like that, which is a great website, but they what I've found is 10 to 15 seconds is what the general recommendation is, so which is super, super long.
Yes.
But this is really, this is like, let's say the first time you're working with a child, the first few times, you're really trying to find where that appropriate prompting sweet spot is. So it's not like you have to go through this whole process every time. You'll figure out, okay, this kid really needs direct verbal cues every single time, or we're talking, partial physical cues or something like that. And you don't have to go from create motivation and then go all the way down this rung and wait 15 seconds in between. You won't do anything. So this is initially you're finding that sweet spot and then kind of landing on it. Then you know what they need to do. But then as you move up and are doing some skills that are a little more difficult, then you're going to have to tweak that level of prompting. So first you create motivation, you wait. They may respond and utilize an AAC device without anything else. But Miss Erin's next thing is expectant pause. So just really providing that wait time, and then following that is indirect visual cues. So that's just using a gesture, and there's a couple different things that we've done with AAC, is like using a flashlight or a laser pointer, or you're just moving the communication system closer, just a little more indirect cue, not directly pointing. It's like, look, you need to go right here. All right, so then after that, after indirect visual cue, you bump it up to a direct visual cue. So you're directly pointing, and that can be a lot of different things. You can just use your hand, of course. Another thing is some people have done There's like these little looking glasses that basically cut out exactly the size of the icon, depending on what you're
Like
using.
magnify.
Yeah, you could
Yeah,
do like a
I've seen those.
magnifying glass,
Yeah.
but and there's some that are like little stars and that just have a cutout in the middle. Some people use pipe cleaners, and they can just create that space in the middle of it to be
Mhm.
exactly the size of it. Some people, we were talking yesterday, and they had wiki sticks, and they were going to do wiki sticks. I'm like, cool, yeah, go with that, whatever
I'm
you want
sorry.
to do.
The last time I saw Wiki Sticks was at, what is that Margaritaville restaurant in Myrtle Beach?
Is it Margaritaville? Is that what it is?
I think it's is that what it's
Jimmy
called? Somebody
Buffett's?
somewhere is like shout yes, this place. They give tiny humans Wiki Sticks to play with, and
Do
I
they
hadn't.
really?
Yes, they do. That's their entertainment. Instead of crowns, they give the kids Wiki Sticks.
Oh, that's fun.
And somehow or another, my sweet little Boobaloo Dawson managed to convince the waitress to basically give him like, I don't know, like a month's stash of Wiki.
So he's
Yes.
creating some cool stuff.
Yes, and we did make a magnifying glass, and
Oh, yeah.
while we were there. So yes, this is wonderful. Might be an SLP's kid win, but like,
There you go.
go team.
Just implicitly knew that after spending so much time with you. That's fun.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Oh,
you move on to a direct visual cue. Again, so after that indirect, you wanna provide that wait time. Say, "Okay, do they need another level?" Okay, so now we did direct visual cue, directly pointing and, using all those different things that we just talked about. Alright, so that still didn't work. So we need to up our ante, and then move into an indirect verbal cue is the way, that she has it laid out. And let me, stop and, say this. I've seen a couple different of these prompting hierarchies, and there are slight differences in those. I don't know if we have like this is the prompting hierarchy, this is the one, to go to, but they're all very, very, very similar. So if what I'm saying is different from something that a listener out there is utilizing, that's okay, of course. This isn't the one that is said, this is the only one. There, I'm sure, slight differences out there. Anyway, but so you move on to an indirect verbal cue. So you're and then you can kind of the way I look at it is like anything that's below that or less invasive, you can kind of combo it. You're not moving away from direct visual cue, and now I'm only doing indirect verbal cue. I'm doing
what
that
is
one.
what do you mean conduit?
Oh, like do it like together. Like
Okay.
I don't know how I said it in a weird way. I may have said it in a weird way.
Yeah, no.
But
I was like, what is this technical terminology?
no, it's
Okay,
not
sorry.
technical term. I just said it in a strange way. So and do all the things like under it. So you're doing like indirect verbal cue, but you also are doing whatever was less invasive prior to that as well. You can like do a combo of those things. Indirect verbal cue, and that's like giving a hint. Use a partial verbal cue. You're not telling them exactly, what to do, but you're kind of giving them a really good idea of what they're doing because you want to kind of peel these layers back and go really slowly because they may not need to say, you need to find this one, very, very, very specific. So then you provide that wait time again, and then you're moving on to more of the direct verbal cue. Directly tell the individual like what you're asking them to find. All right, now we're looking for go. We're looking for go, So you already provided. It was like, what does a car do? That was more of the indirect thing, and then you're moving to the direct verbal cue of like, all right, we're finding go. And then you're giving more wait time, and then you move in really kind of to those more physical prompts following that. And I'm going to jump over and talk about the second one. So I really kind of used two that I was talking about earlier.
Okay,
So
wait.
this one's a little more technical, and then the other one's a little more clear cut and a little easier to understand, I think. But go
Okay,
ahead.
well, I have one quick question on the physical cues.
Sure.
There was the episode on Give Me 2 Seconds. Was it 60 Minutes or CBS that they had it like redact? And it was where they were like doing hand over hand, but they were like making the selection for
Oh.
the user
I
versus
yeah, I'm not familiar with it, but I
yeah,
can understand what you're talking about.
there was a news thing where they were doing the selection for the user, and it had to do with they were doing AAC. Somebody somewhere is like screaming it into the car radio right now and or at the gym,
Yeah,
and
sure.
it was supposed to be like the new type of like physical cueing. So when you're talking about physical cueing, do they describe, is it like literal hand over hand, or is it like prompting like a brush at the back of the hand or like a brush on the elbow to activate? Do they give
Sure.
specifics on that?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's made me nervous ever since then.
Yeah, no, well, it goes way, deeper into that. So it's you have partial physical, cues, and then you kinda move to more, full physical cues, and again, you're moving through these levels. Each of those levels can be even more minute than that, so partial, how partial is that? So you wanna again, you're going from the least invasive and, you want them to be as independent as possible. So you're only going to like a full physical if you have to do that, if that's absolutely. But, so a partial physical, you nailed it with like, basically a tap on the elbow towards the device, kinda getting them in the general vicinity. So that can be a partial physical. And then you're moving to more, full physical, and you can do more of like a hand under hand, you're not pointing for them. And then I would say the last thing that you would do would be hand over hand. And again, that's only if, you have to do that. If they're able to access it any other way prior to that, then allow them to do that. Because again, you're trying to, develop an independent skill, that they will be able to use. So I don't know if that answers that question because I'm
Yes,
not
it
not
does.
sure exactly what, the 60-minute thing is. It sounds like it probably was they were doing hand over hand when that was not, necessary, or
Yes.
when they were, saying that it was something that it wasn't. I don't know. But
It
the,
was a
uh
very heated, yeah, go check it out because it was all
yeah.
about, and I think it was like 10 years ago.
Oh, okay, so it was a
And
while back.
yeah, it was a while back, but it was very, like, contentious, and it made me super but it was one of those things that you know how you come across an article and it just sticks with you and it, like,
Sure,
burns an
yeah.
image into your soul and you're like, "I will never do that."
Yeah, yeah.
That's what happened to my, like, little novice AAC brain, and so ever since then, when anybody's, like, hand over hand, and I'm like, "But we're not supposed to do that."
R
So, like,
right, and
but
I remember
that
some
makes
stuff
sense the
about,
way you
like,
describe that.
yeah, it was like, and I could be, stepping over a line that I was unaware of, but, I
We
mean,
do that here.
like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's, the last resort, for doing
Yes.
something like that, and you're really just trying to help them make a selection,
Yep.
that you're trying to get to.
And I've used that to, like, help teach it. So, like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
your device, and, like, so, I mean, I've done that for, like, the first couple iterations. So, like, yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
we're not trying to
Sorry.
control them or anything like that. The,
Mhm.
idea is, you're trying to get to those independent skills, or,
Mhm.
snugs. What was that, spontaneous novel, utterance generation, you're trying to get them to get to
A
that.
snug?
Get to a
That's
snug.
my new favorite word.
Yeah, I like that. I like that acronym, snug. So that's what you're trying to get to, but if they're well away from that, you have to do, whatever you need to do to, help them, learn that skill. Uh,
Nice.
but the other, one that we're looking at, and we kinda talk about it a little more simpler terms, I think, is, a prompting hierarchy that, goes from visual, verbal, and then you kinda have those indirect indirects, inside those. Then you're more gestural, and then you're moving to, modeling. So you're actually modeling it for them, and then a partial, physical, and then full physical. And again, there are all these nuances within, those different categories as well. And I think the main part of it is for the entire team to be on board that there are these levels of prompting. So when we're talking parents, especially more of your, side of things, because you're dealing directly with the parents, a good bit more. And on my side, since I work in the school district, we're talking about the, paraprofessionals, the, general ed teacher, depending on the situation, a self-contained, special education teacher, resource teacher, things like that, and other, SLPs, OTs, PTs, because we want to be able to discuss, where this child is, like, well, this is what I'm saying. Well, this is what I'm saying. And, team members could be all over the map. But if you start talking about level of prompting, it's like, what level of prompting are you providing? If they're doing really, really well and you find out that they're doing a bunch of hand over hand prompting, you're like, well, I mean, you're not really allowing them to independently select anything. So, and I'm saying that they're only, able to select, one word at a time, and they have independently being able to do like 5 total words. But I'm at a level that's more just verbal prompting. I'm prompting them verbally, and that's it. That's going to land a lot differently than somebody who is full physical, showing them exactly what to do. So it's very important to find that sweet spot. How much prompting does that child actually need, and to get on the same page?
Stuck.
Yeah, to make eventually to get to where it's a spontaneous novel utterance generation, where they're able to do it on their own. That's kind of where we want them to go. But to discuss it as a team, it's really important that everybody understands that there are levels to this. And then we can kind of all move. And it does 2 different things. You can actually identify, all right, this is where the child is, and we can see that. And also it shows you like, okay, there's incremental progress that is going on here. If we're moving, we're having to do more of a partial physical, and now we're no longer even having to nudge that elbow. They're able to do it on their own, just with visual and verbal, maybe even gestural. That's a big step forward. And that may have been missed if you didn't discuss the different levels of prompting that were present. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm just thinking of like all the different team members, because you were rattling off like your interprofessional team
Sure.
for like a school
Yeah,
district,
yeah.
and we have similar ones at home, but in early intervention, it's give or take where the child is seen. So where y'all have
Sure.
general education teacher, we might have daycare teacher. We might have home health nurse that sits with them, whether it be a CNA, LPN, or RN, give or take like the severity of need.
Right.
We might have, and when it's done right, it's a beautiful thing. We might have an ABA team.
Right.
And I am well aware of the scope of practice encroachment. That's a conversation for a whole nother day.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I have one lady that like I know who's absolutely dynamic, and she's married to an SLP. And so when I work with a kiddo on the spectrum and has an AAC device, she'll actually bring in the entire child's ABA team from line to lead to she's the BCBA, and we'll sit down and discuss that as a team. And that's
great.
I know it's
Yeah, that's really
so rarely done that it makes her stand out, but she has keen insight as her wife is an SLP, so like
gotcha. Yeah,
she sees the world uniquely through that lens, which
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
of course, those kids make amazing progress.
Well, I'm
Yay,
sure they do.
collaboration.
Well, yeah, and that's really kind of what this prompting hierarchy, like that's what it's done this year. We've kind of placed more of a we're trying to have a focus on this year, and getting all those team members on board. And I feel like people feel more confident in what they're doing. They're like able to identify. And the last
You can quantify it.
yeah, exactly. Last episode we
Yeah.
talked about ALP and all that stuff. ALP
Yes.
was for SLP stuff. So we talked about that, and that kind of what we were able to quantify. And this is just another level of that, so we can kind of quantify it on a different level. But people can talk about it, they get excited. Okay, now we're able to just model for them, and they are able to make that selection when we were. Again, having to do a full physical or partial physical prompt, and they see that. And I don't know if in the past they were seeing that, in the cases that I'm seeing, it was kind of more, they're still not able to do it independently, completely. And if it was like an all or nothing kind of thing.
And what I have seen is that kids are smart, and they will learn which caregiver or team member lets them get away with the business.
No doubt.
Yeah. And so it's always really funny to be like, all right, we're sitting around the table, and it's like, okay, which one of us is, and normally in my world, it's like the kitchen table, but like, which one of us is the weak link? Which one of us is a sucker, because and every once in a while it's me, because, I am, I am what I am. But like, I'm like, oh, you need a little more help? Okay, here you go. And like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But
and I feel like we all have at least a little bit of that. We want to
Yeah.
help. We want to help.
Yes.
We want to do what's best for them. And so that is tough. It's so hard to find that sweet spot. How much, what level of help do they really need? We struggle with that. It's hard. It's hard. But
It's okay. I'm going to increase 5 Mississippis up to at least 7 Mississippis. How about that?
It's a very long time. It is a very long time.
Oh, no.
And that like brings me to just like thinking about being in some of these classrooms and seeing it's tough. It's tough for people to wait that long. So that's something that we're going to continuously need to improve upon. But it is allowing that wait time. And a lot of times kids are surprising us. You just like have to sit back and wait. We want to answer for them. We want to answer for them and help them because it's coming out of a very positive place, so it's not not like they're trying to take their voice away or anything like that. But you see people get very used to answering for them, and it's kind of a tough conversation sometimes, but because I start talking about and the person that I work with closely starts talking about, well, what are they going to do down the road? And it's a little more, especially when we're talking about older kids, we're talking because we push into middle and high school as well, so that's a little bit farther away from like the early intervention stuff. But
it's okay. We're setting the foundations. That's honestly how I view our world. Is we're the foundations. We're the building blocks that everything else is predicated upon. And
right.
I kind of feel like if we need to create a firm foundation, otherwise everything will fall downhill.
And it's never too early to start, that road to independence type thing. So
yes, and that's one thing that I hear. Unfortunately, a lot of times early intervention gets a bum rap that we just like play with the tiny humans, but like we're the starting place.
Absolutely.
I mean, and sometimes the NICU is the starting place, or like the hospital is the starting place, but often it's us. You're the workhorse that sets it up for everything else downstream, which is why we need to know about things such as prompting hierarchy and core vocab and the concepts behind why we should pick out certain devices. And
oh wow, yeah. And we deal with that. We are actually we just had an intake recently, and I was we haven't really done much with this kiddo as far as the AT consultant. This was the first time I met the kiddo yesterday. But if things were starting much earlier, who knows where that kid would be?
Yes.
But unfortunately, in that particular situation, nothing really was going on. So we're starting from where we are, which is fine, and we'll do the best we can from moving forward. But the earlier, the better. Obviously, earlier the better.
Which is why I keep asking you back.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you asking me. I'm glad.
Okay, all right. So what?
Can we
jump to push in?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Or do I have to behave myself?
No, you're good. Okay. No, yeah, we'll absolutely do that. So, and that's what I was talking about, like what middle and high school, and it starts with that foundation as early intervention being the foundation, and moves all the way up. But we have those conversations about what are they going to do without you. Because a lot of teachers, I mean, they really get attached to their kids, and I completely understand that. But a lot of times they are understanding them a lot. And this is if we're talking about like an intelligibility type thing. We have some kiddos with like CP and things like that need some AAC devices, but the teacher states that they completely understand them. But then I kind of prompt them with that question of, but does anyone else, like if they went to Walmart by themselves and needed to find the restroom or something like that, would they be able to be understood? And then it becomes like, oh, well, no, probably not. I was like, well, think about it like that. I'm really glad you can understand, but we probably need to be thinking about how they can become completely independent. And those are more conversations that occur, later on down the road. But you're right, that foundation needs to be set early on, because again, we're looking at that complete independence is what we're searching for. But to switch back into push-ins, because all this kind of obviously melds together. So currently we're doing push-ins from high school classrooms, and we're only doing self-contained classrooms at this point. Again, I mean, it's a matter of time. There's only a certain amount of classrooms that we can push into, but we're doing self-contained classrooms ranging from high school all the way down to preschool special needs classrooms. And I'll kind of tell you what we are looking at, like how we kind of set it up, and then we can kind of talk more so about why it's important and the kind of pitfalls and all that. So typically, right now we kind of have our model lesson is we start off with a song, typically to kind of start the lesson. Then we have a pretty much a read aloud type thing, and then an activity which changes pretty much every time. We can play a game a little bit, like a type of game, switch activated toys, but we're like targeting core words written on dice. We've used like Pop the Pig, Alligator Dentist. We've done like musical chairs.
Alligator dentist?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the
You know
thing
that
where you
game,
push
yeah.
the tooth and the alligator bites you?
Yeah, yeah. So we were doing one where I was the guinea pig, and so I was like moving my finger around, and they were having to choose which tooth by using stop and go. So I was going
Good.
go 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 go, and then stop, and then they really enjoyed when the alligator bit my hand. It was fun. But anyway, so we do a lot of fun activities to tie in whatever core vocabulary word we were. So we did a song, then we did a lesson, like a read aloud type thing, and then we targeted via something that's really engaging for the kids. So we try to find something that's really fun. So that's kind of what we do, and our main point is going through a bunch of different core vocabulary, giving exposure to them, as well as showing them showing, and I say them, showing like the SLPs that are actually within the building, the teachers, the aides, the importance of modeling. So we're how to model, why to model, and what to model, really. So why are we modeling core vocabulary words? And we've seen some really good response from it, and it almost feels a little more implicit than explicit, which was kind of surprising to us. But it seems like us showing them what to do and having them do it with us, because I mean, everybody, all those team members are participating throughout that entire lesson. It's not me just running the show. They are all involved with it. I'm up there, playing a song or something, but they are modeling, because I can't, play the guitar and sing at the same time as providing some modeling. So all of them are doing that. So we've seen a lot of progress within the classrooms, because they are actually taking those, and I think a huge part of it is the paraprofessionals within the rooms, them doing a really, really good job of modeling for those kids and seeing the importance of it. And then so that happens. So like we are pushing in like for a 30-minute lesson every other week. And then we have
Do they
holidays and all this stuff, so we miss a lot of time. So they are with them for way, 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 way more time than we are. So that's kind of the big thing, is them being able to be confident and model and do all that stuff. What was your question?
Okay, so in the push-in model, when you're pushing in the sense, because I'm old and I haven't worked in the public schools since I was an SLPA-ish.
Yeah,
And so when I think of push-in, I think of the older method of like you are working with a child that has a language delay or impairment in a typically developing classroom. But when you're pushing in as the SLP pushing into the SPED classroom with the little one doing like a group model. Are there typically developing kids in the classroom or?
not in these situations, no.
Okay.
So in this scenario, and this is we have self-contained classrooms, and obviously we don't have as the SLPs, we don't have control over that model. So
Yeah,
that's just
no. Wouldn't that be lovely if we did though?
yeah.
But
So
kids are out.
yeah, so that is the way our particular school district is running things. So it's a self-contained classroom. So we push in, and it varies how many kids are actually utilizing a device, but we typically at least have one kiddo. But we're doing the lesson with the entire class. So that's how our situation is set up.
Okay, so I see this as a win because some children in the self-contained classroom may need the speech generating device, but even if they don't necessarily need the speech generating device, just the modeling of that core vocab language.
Right.
I mean, we all know the more that we model, the more that it lays down a neural network and the better
Right.
language acquisition. So like,
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
So we don't, see it as a waste of time for the rest of the kids. So typically, alright, so and I'm just thinking of one classroom in particular, but it very, very similar across the board. So we go into a classroom, and I'm thinking of one where this class has 3 different devices, and those 3 different language systems that we identified over the course of a long AT evaluation. We found the right device, the right vocabulary set, the right fit for that kid, those individuals. All right, so the rest of them in that classroom, we still use a manual board, so a core vocabulary board. It varies, but we typically are using Lamp Words for Life, that home page, just screenshots of those that are laminated, and we have those boards. And so we use different levels of prompting there too, because if a kid can independently uh, find those words, then we're good to go. But then we use other things like we actually draw on the board sometimes if a kid needs help finding those core vocabulary words. But anyway, so
like dry erase
yeah, yeah,
marker.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Dry erase, so then we can wipe it off, and then the next session, we typically are spending like 1 to 2 weeks, or 1 to 2 sessions rather, on a different core vocabulary word, and just so we as these push-in people are exposing a bunch of different lessons, a bunch of different ways to target a bunch of different things, with the expectation that the in-house SLP as well as the teacher are kind of finding the level of words that they need to be using on an everyday basis, finding that and kind of going with that. But anyway, so we're trying to bounce all over the place and kind of, and they're all core vocabulary words, but show them a bunch of different ways to target this. But so they're using those manual communication boards, even the verbal kids. And if you're familiar with those boards, you see that the words are on there as well. So we see these as literacy activities as well for those verbal kiddos, because they are finding the words on the board independently. At least that's what the first attempt is. So as we're going through the lesson, they're creating these sentences. And again, and we change the the amount of words that we're expecting each individual kid to provide back to us based on their level of ability at that point in time, because it could be like, I want to go to the store or something like that, and then some kids are in those classrooms can do that entire thing. They can read all of those words and put that sentence together, and then we may need to drop it down to go store or go to store or something like that. So we have to kind of individualize that. But so that's kind of really what it looks like.
That's amazing.
But luckily, we have a lot of adults in those rooms typically, because
Yeah.
the school SLP is coming in there with us, so that's an additional person in the room. The gen ed teacher, or excuse me, the special education teacher's already in there. The
The
paraprofessionals
parapro.
are already in there. Then I'm in there, or my partner, because we go to different schools. But so one of us are in the rooms. So that's a lot more bodies. So a lot of opportunities to model when we go in, because these are classrooms that have pretty low amount of children in there, so that they're not that many kids in there. So it's nice.
Oh my goodness.
So
This is a dream, Stephen. This is not what it was like when I was in the public schools a lifetime ago.
yeah,
But yeah.
honestly, I think we're extremely fortunate that we have some leadership that we again, myself, my partner, and then we have an assistive technology lead. We've devised this plan and presented it to them, and they were, believed in us enough to allow us to try this. And then we've gotten really, really good results as far as the team feeling more confident, as well as just more devices.
Like confident in using their devices,
Correct.
or in like,
Or even
okay.
just accepting it as a possibility. I mean, to be completely frank and honest, some of these team members did not believe that this was an option for a lot of kids, or did not see the importance of it. And that's something that we continue to fight.
That's
Not
my
saying
word.
that we got buy-in from everyone 100%, because that's definitely not the case. But it has moved the needle in the right direction. But what I was saying is, we're just very fortunate that we have leadership that trusted us. And I believe that we were going to do something that was very positive. And even with, and I know a lot of people are like, well, that can't happen in our school district. And I know it's difficult to make stuff like that happen, because we have shortages in SLPs, so they could easily pull us. And, but we are, since it is kind of a smaller group, we are helping those SLPs within the school provide some service time and do all of that. And we're also helping them with data collection. Are they collecting the right data for these AAC kids and things like that? So we're helping them with all of that. So it is kind of a win-win, because a lot of times it's taking a little bit of pressure off of them, because we are providing those lessons and they just need to show up. They just need to be present, and then we'll take care of all of the lesson, and they're just really kind of collecting data and helping us with it. So, that is a positive, and that's kind of what's helpful for us to sell that as being an option. But anyway, with a lot of SLP shortages, which our school district is, it will be easy for them to say, you just need to go do direct services and stop all of this. You know what I mean? But we're fortunate that they did not do that.
Okay, so and two thoughts on this.
Sure.
One, did you finish up the Leadership Academy, or are you in it right now?
No, yeah, I am done. So I probably over a year ago now. I think.
Okay, all right. Because I couldn't remember. Yeah. Okay, so folks, Stephen did the ASHA Leadership Academy and graduated. I did that like a lifetime ago, but they have that available.
Yeah.
And yes, we work in the world of early intervention, or we work in the world of early childhood special education, but apply for that, because there's one cohort specific for SLPs in general. There's one cohort specific for SLPs that work in the public schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I am well aware that a lot of us are hybrid. A lot of us, work in the public schools during the day, and then PRN and home health EI,
Sure.
because we have student loan debt, and that's astronomical and crippling. That's a conversation for another day. But that would be, if you wanted to create that push-in model and to support and to, create the argument of, hey, we need to focus more on effective AAC therapeutic strategies. And if we focused on a crucial conversation around prompting hierarchy, and if we did a push-in approach, then we would be able to collect data, and yet the argument could be built. That would be a phenomenal application essay for the ASHA Leadership Development Program.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, squirrel, but that would be very exciting.
Yeah,
okay,
no.
All right. I just looked at the clock.
No, and I think that's a really good thing to mention, because we did what were it, like project charters within that program, and I really think that affected the way of just kind of lining that up and making it a win for leadership, and seeing how they would understand how this is something that's going to be a win-win, just beneficial for everybody. And that was easier to sell it that way. So, because we already built in any questions that they had, or any caveats, pitfalls, we went ahead and figured out the answers to it, before that we presented. And I think, going through a leadership program like that was definitely helpful to selling that and figuring that out.
Mm-hmm. Because they teach you, and one of the big benefits is they teach you how to take in all the stakeholder buy-ins and create a sound argument.
Yep, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. Yep. Stakeholders are important, people.
Oh yeah. Because you can have a really good idea, and all this sounds great, but if we didn't really kind of go through that and think about it, they have too much to think about. And if they hit a caveat and we didn't have an answer for them, it's like, well, that's dead. That's over. And I know that can be very difficult.
Your paywall. Yeah. Isn't that what you called it earlier? That's your paywall, baby.
You hit the paywall, and you cannot go beyond that. So that's something that you need to kind of go through and figure it out. But you can do all that and still get denied, no doubt. because there are,
Wow.
limitations as far as funding and things like that. But yeah, we're very fortunate. So, and we realize that.
Yeah. Okay. So to tie this into the world of EI
Sure.
in the 7 minutes that we have,
Yeah.
dun, 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 I do a lot of push-in, but
Yep.
when I do push-in, it's me, myself, and I, and or a lovely tiny human. And I just finished with my last lovely, amazing intern, Miss Mariah, who will be heading to Tennessee come graduation, and she is amazing and wonderful. And my heart is sad that she's leaving our Palmetto State because she's a firecracker of grace and an amazing student, but she'll do wonderful things in Tennessee. But that's normally it. It's me pushing in with an intern at a daycare where I'm trying to convince individuals to even trial an AAC device where they may not have a teacher certification. They may not have gone to school for it. And I'm trying to establish and create buy-in from a team that I've had daycare workers just say, we don't have time to play on the iPad today. And I'm
I
like,
believe it.
that's not what we're doing. So like, there's a lot of, there's a lot to be said there. So what strategies do you have for those of us in those predicaments?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you almost have to be a salesman or salesman
Yes,
a
I
little
do.
bit.
I feel like a used car salesman, but
Right,
for like the
you
bullets for
use
life.
this,
Like, this is me.
exactly, and sometimes it's super hard. So I think one of the biggest things is showing them a win. If they can see a win and almost create the win, or it at least appears as if they created that win or were an integral
Mhm.
part of doing that. And you have to be like kind of hold your tongue a little bit and be humble and like I really did that and I want I want to take credit for it, but and just
I knew they were going to ask for a chocolate chip cookie because Chips Ahoy's are their favoriteest things ever.
right, and kind of help set up a situation where they can kind of get a win, and also just show them the importance of it. A lot of times, like having those conversations again, I'll reference something that's for older kids, but talking about going to a store, Walmart, which was definitely a thing that these children are going to do later on in life, these in particular, and asking for where the bathroom is, so that hit home with them. So I keep saying that, especially to
Oh,
middle and high
you don't
school
want to go to
kids.
the No, you don't want to ever ask for the bathroom there.
Well,
Like,
that's
sorry.
different.
As a mom, I draw the line there. We don't tinkle. You will hold it till we get home unless you get but like, no. It's
This
like,
is a different situation. So they're
ask for a water at the
independent
Walmart.
adults. But you could translate that into an EI situation as well. Like if this child can communicate when they are hungry, thirsty, need to go to the restroom, and that limits some behaviors, some negative behaviors, because they really are just trying to communicate something. And I feel like that's probably a spot where you can win with them if you can limit any negative behaviors that they're having due to a communication breakdown. And if they are able to actually communicate something, then they may start seeing the importance of it. I'm not sure, but if you can make that happen, sometimes that's difficult, especially at the beginnings of it, because you're there for such a short period of time. It's really hard to get all those models in for that kiddo to start actually utilizing the device. So it takes a long time. But if they can see a win like that, then I think they buy in a little more.
It'll help. I've had success, and folks, it is completely dependent upon the buy-in from the daycare and the daycare workers themselves.
Sure.
And so I've had success with low tech device outside the bathroom door.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, like yes, no potty. And they ended up using it also for snack. And it was the big red X with a no and a sad face and the happy yellow yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember why yes was yellow. I don't remember what it's got to be a brand. And then the potty in between. But I mean, it was,
I've
like a
seen
Jack.
that yellow too. There must
Yes.
be a brand because I have seen it too.
Yeah, I'm like, photographic memory is working. I just don't remember where it's from. But that seems that for that kid, I would push in during snack time, and we had a lot of feeding aversions, which is one of the multitude of reasons that I was in there. And then we were able to request something different. Do you want this? No. And it was like something they hated, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, that's good.
whatever. And then okay, did you want this? And held up like the desired object, and I
Sure.
don't remember what it was in particular. And the little one would walk over and say yes, which was breaking all the rules because we had to get up out of our seat during snack time. However, they didn't want it on the table, so it was like a compromise. So we just moved our seat closer to the door. That way, instead of having to get up and walk, we could just
Yeah.
like reach from like the seat to like where the little door was, and that was life alteringly cool. And
Yeah.
one thing that I have pushed in with in the daycares is one little, two little, three little, was it snowmen? One little, two little, three little snowmen, four little, five. There's a song. It's a snowman, and then like the snowman's like hat blows off, and it's a little video, right?
Yeah.
That and the one little finger song. I've used those on an AAC device as well as your trip to the zoo song, friend, and done circle time, where I have pushed in and led circle time with my terrible voice because I don't sing, and use the communication device. But I got the other kids in the class, and you're talking like a room full of like quote unquote typically developing 3-year-olds, and my one little one that had some needs. And by allowing the other children to use it, and then having the teachers recognize that the other kids were picking out like and I'm biased. I like my words for life, but like picking out the numbers on there, and they're like, "Oh, they found number 3," and I'm like, "Yes, but they did, because we know our numbers, because it's emergent literacy at its finest." But getting them in on it and making it less fearful, that helped.
Yeah, no, I can see
Um,
that.
yes. So
Some
that was
peer modeling too, that's kinda cool.
yes, yes.
A
But
and I think, you hit on a really good point is, flexibility as far as the SLP, the expert coming in and like, "Well, it should be like this," and, you compromising and allowing it, to be, slightly different than what the plan you would've, laid out if you were, controlling the whole situation. We had a, situation like that yesterday. I was kind of pushing a certain uh, manual communication board, and the teacher's like, well, I found this on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, but it had a lot of good core vocabulary. It met the needs for what we were talking about, so I just shut up and and allowed
and let it
and
ride.
let it ride.
Yes.
And she has so much, or it appeared at the end of that conversation, there was so much more buy-in when she was choosing. She found something. She's taking control and just letting that go. It's not perfect, but it's way, way, way better than what it was. So it's a huge step forward, and maybe she'll come around to exactly, what I think later on down the road. Maybe not, and that's okay. But
You planted a seed, friend. You
yeah, yeah.
planted a seed.
So it's kind of like it sounds like that's the same thing. You're compromising in those rooms. So I think that's probably a
Yes.
big thing to remember.
Yes. We so desperately want to have everything our way, but that is not the way of the world.
Right.
Because if that was the way of the world, well, there'd be a whole lot more angry people. And I mean, there's a fair few of them, but choose joy. Hashtag choose joy. Go team. See, I may not know what a paywall is until this conversation, but I know what a hashtag is
That's pretty
because
good.
of another lovely intern. Yay! Oh, it's sad but true. Okay. All right. I have to give us at least 30 seconds so that somebody can ask a question because we always run over.
Sure.
But we had gone over when we started about the amazing things that are coming up. And y'all, I mean, Steven's YouTube channel, Speech and Language Songs, is wonderful. And they are, especially the core vocab ones, are perfectly timed for a little one to use with an AAC device, which is just, it does allocate for latency period, which is great because a lot of the songs that we normally integrate into our therapy sessions, they don't give the latency period. And I know I'm fast, 5-second rule, right? But like, I'm working on that, but his are beautiful rhythm and rate. And
one thing to add with that, there's a feature within YouTube. You go in the
yeah,
settings, like within the like you're looking at the video. There's the settings there at the bottom right, and maybe in the top right if you're like on your phone. but you can go in and change the rate. So you can actually
What?
slow down the song. So yeah, so like I made the core vocabulary songs to be very simple, redundant, and slow, but you can slow those down even further. And we've
Awesome.
done that in some classes because and yeah, what you're talking about, like a lot of kids songs and just songs in general are very, very fast paced. So you can slow
Yeah,
those
but they need to
down.
process it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slow those down as well. You can just try it out. That is an option that I found out probably like a month ago, and I didn't know about it either.
That's amazing. See, yay, go team. Okay, so so I mean, I'm a fan, but I mean, that's why I asked you to come do the thing every Tuesday night. So
Thank you.
yay. But if somebody wanted to reach out, if they have more questions that we don't have time for, or if they want to learn more from you, how can they best reach you?
Sure. You can head to speechandlanguagesongs.com. So we have a website there, and there's a little place you can shoot me an email there. But it's speechandlanguagesongs@gmail.com. You can send me an email there. So we do personalized songs where we can take some of your kiddos' favorite things and create a song especially for them. And I can send that directly to you. We have a bunch of articulation, core vocabulary, language, literacy songs. And if you have anybody out there has any suggestions for songs, they have something that they really want to see, please feel free to send me an email. Glad to work with you and come up with one for you.
Perfect. And they're also on Instagram, y'all. So just be sure to check Speech and Language Songs. They're on Instagram as well.
Yep.
So there's that too. Beautiful. Okay. Well, then sit tight and let me switch over to questions. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Hang on one second. Aaron and I want to start with a really big, heartfelt first bite. Thank you. We have been so encouraged by your kind word, your messages, your glowing reviews of First Bite. This has been a labor of love for the last year and a half. And we are grateful for y'all being on the First Bite journey with us and supporting us because we work full time and this is a full-time gig on top of it. And we do it with joy because we understand that the world of early intervention pediatrics needs evidence in it. So we sweet talked the folks with speechtherapypd.com, and as a thank you giveaway, we have come up with a free pod course subscription. So once we hit 130 iTunes written reviews, we're going to pull another name out of the hat, probably with the assistance of an ever so handsome goose and a bear. And that person will get a free pod course subscription. That's our way of giving back. So thank you. So please keep the reviews coming. We only have a few more to go, but once we hit 130, then we will pull that name out of a hat. Happy 2020. Thank you for joining us on the journey. And seriously, y'all rock. Thank you. All right. So we are going to have one dynamite lecture called The Case for ARFID Being a Pediatric Feeding Disorder on Friday, January 24th at 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, presented by Dr. Richard Knoll, MD, PhD. And in that session, he's going to review the consensus definition for pediatric feeding disorders, how it establishes a framework for diagnosis, care, and research that accommodates feeding problems and disturbances in children, including avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. And this has been a hot button topic in the world of pediatric feeding and swallowing. So please join me on Friday, January 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Feeding Matters online amazing conference. And I am so excited to see y'all virtually there. That's a wrap, folks. Once again, thank you for listening to First Bite, fed, fun, and functional. I am your humble but yet sassy host, Michelle Dawson, the All Things Peds SLP. This podcast is part of a course offered for continuing education through speechtherapypd.com. Please check out the website if you'd like to learn more about CEU opportunities for this episode, as well as the ones that are archived. And as always, remember, feed your mind, feed your soul, be kind, and feed those babies.